Welcome back to Reviews with Elaine, because I have opinions. And today's opinions will be about System Collapse by Martha Wells. So yeah, this was not the book that I intended to review this week. I am currently reading The Crimson Debt by Rose Sinister. I'm about halfway through, but this book is a little bit heavier than I expected, and so it's taking me a little bit longer, and objectively, this week has been hell. So I was just like, screw it, I want to just take a moment and read a comfort read, and really just return to a series that feels like home to me. And somehow, this series of books about a dystopian future where evil corporations rule huge portions of the known universe that is built on slave labor and a world where sentient beings are treated like tools is somehow deeply comfortable to me. So yeah, this is book 7 in the Murderbot Diaries, and it continues almost directly from the previous one, Network Effect. So there will be spoilers specifically for Network Effect in this review, as well as probably a good number for the previous books in the series. And that means, like usual, maybe go read all of those books before you watch this video. Or hell, just go read those books, because I will admit, I love them so much. But our story picks up with Murderbot out on a mission to help the Combined Preservation Survey and Arts University's colony rescue team on a trip to the surface of the same planet where they were kidnapped and held hostage in the previous book. They are collectively trying to get all the colonists to safety, preferably off-planet, considering this one seems to be utterly infested with alien remnants that drive humans and bots to wild, violent, unpredictable behavior. Murderbot, Rathy, Iris, and Tarek are soon volunteering to make a quick trip to the pole, where the terraforming facility blocks all form of scanning and communication, because the colonists have informed them that there may be another group of separatist colonists up there, who likely have no idea what's going on in the rest of the planet. Murderbot isn't exactly sure about any of this, because something redacted happened that has it wildly unsure of its own ability to do its job, which has left it even less sure of its own place in the universe. Which would all be bad enough, but we also have several corporate teams wandering the planet who see this colony, the planet, and the colonists as property. Murderbot and its team are determined to save the colonists, and Murderbot in specific is determined to prevent them all from dying horrifically while trying to do so. And I love this book so fucking much. This was exactly what I needed in this exact moment. First, because Murderbot wasn't already a, sentient ball of trauma, Martha Wells decided to pile more trauma on it for this novella. And I effing loved the way it was handled. We still get the humorous storytelling, the jokes, the quiet, desperate love hidden beneath the cynicism. But the self-deprecation is turned up to 11, and there are these moments of quiet desperation that are heart-wrenching. And I love that we both get to see a Murderbot trying desperately to hold itself together while we're getting slowly, gradually fed the information of what actually happened. Because yeah, for the first 100 pages or so, you have no information about what event is currently traumatizing Murderbot. There's passing comments before and after and around the things that Murderbot's narration redacts, that you can get the feeling that it has to do with that brief time in Network Effect when Murderbot was captured and the hostiles attempted to infect it with the virus. Like, we get the feeling that's what's going on. And when I say redacted, yeah, there are literally moments that the narration just stops and it says redacted. And sometimes it's mid-sentence and the word redacted is just there and you have to jump ahead and it's like, okay, cool. And it's a very simple but very great way of showing us that Murderbot isn't even up to thinking about what happened. Then there are these passing comments that it's not like it actually lost a limb permanently, that when you find out what really did happen, it hits in retrospect like a brick wall, and oh my god, it's so amazing. But then you get to the point where Murderbot just says, I'm gonna have to tell you what happened. And at least I had such an interesting mix of like totally seeing how this could be super traumatizing, but also being like, oh my god, it's okay, baby, it's not that big of a deal, you're fine. And I really love that, both because it's something very human, but completely shakes Murderbot's very understanding of itself. But also, it is simultaneously such a huge deal and sort of not. And I feel like it's doing some really interesting things here in this narration about how, like, some things may not seem like a big deal to one person, but can completely destroy someone else, depending on, like, their mindset and what's going on around them. And then it gets even more complex, because near the end of the book, we get another single moment that is nothing is directly stated. It still lets you put together the dots, but it is 1,000,000,000% clear that it wasn't the trauma, that what we've been, you know, learning about what's been redacted, it isn't the trauma itself, it's the symptom of something else. And I just think it's so utterly masterfully done. There's just enough reminders of the event that the reader can connect the dots. But it's also, it still feels like the reader is connecting the dots and aren't just being handed a finished connect the dot puzzle. And it makes it hit so much harder because we are having the revelation at the exact same time that Murderbot is having the revelation. And it made me cry. I burst into tears when I read that moment, and it's fucking beautiful. And it's also, it's really hard for me, at least, to figure out as an author how long you can / should keep a secret from the reader. Because if you reveal it too early, there's no mystery, there's no interest, there's no drive to find out what's going on, and so that revelation will lack power. A bit of mystery drives a reader to want to read on. But if you hold out too long to tell your reader something, then yeah, they are going to lose patience. I have definitely read books that I've wanted to just throw across the room because it felt like they were keeping something from me as a cheap gimmick. It felt like, you know when you had that friend back in the 2000s who constantly was vague posting on Facebook and other social media that would just make random posts that were just like, oh, you know, all know what it's like when your friends suck. And it was constant, and you felt like they were desperately trying to manipulate you to care about something that otherwise you probably wouldn't have cared about. Yeah, sometimes it can feel like that. And so it's a really difficult trick to get right, having a big looming secret. Giving readers enough clues, enough hints, enough just plain information that they can connect to the story and not lose patience without giving it away too soon. And I feel like this book hit that balance perfectly. It was very bald in the beginning that there is a mystery here. I'm guessing most readers will probably have a prediction about what that mystery is about 25 to 30 pages in, and then it's revealed about 100 pages in. But then that information gets completely recontextualized repeatedly throughout the rest of the book. And it means we are engaged with this mystery straight through the entire story. But I also want to talk about some of the continuing themes that show up throughout the series, starting with the intense focus on humanity of everyone and everything in these books. Whether you are looking at the constructs, the people, the bots, the computer systems, so many of them are given this beautiful, heaping helping of humanity. So many of them are just desperately trying to protect those that they care about, having big, irrational, emotional reactions, being petty and kind in equal measures. And even in moments that we are clearly meant to see them as bad or antagonistic people, we are given these great little reminders that they too have people that they love and will fight for. And in contrast, we have the dehumanizing evil corporations. And we see how living in those corporate confines where you're set up to desperately fight for the scraps to survive turn people into monsters. We are directly shown how capitalism in the extreme destroys humanity. And in this one, even some of the characters from previous stories are recontextualized, and we are reminded of them and shown how so much of their behavior was sparked by their desperate need for the personal security the corporate system denies them. And it's really bold, and I really like it. And it also plays into Murderbot's quiet yet prevalent sense that if it can't do its job, what good is it? It really does feel like if it can no longer protect the humans around it, no one will want it around. And yeah, of course, we have, as the reader, we see plenty of evidence that that's not true. People like Murderbot and just want it around. But that's what spending too much time in a system that only values you for what you can provide to the system can do to a person. And I feel like Martha Wells is getting more and more blatant about these themes, and as the series progresses, it feels like she's just going, nah, fuck it, you have to see what's going on here. And the other thing that I really love in this particular book, how she handles it, is just straight up coming out and telling us the theme. Like, I honestly really like it when fiction, when books that are, you know, supposedly light fiction, straight up state their thesis statement. Because, yeah, surprisingly large number of people will try to ignore the thesis statements there and will try to ignore the themes, and I'm like, it's there. You may choose to read it shallowly, but that does not mean it's shallow. And this book is like, nah, bitch, you gon' see the theme. I'm gonna go to page 161. It was obvious that media could change emotions, change opinions. Visual, audio, and text media could actually rewrite organic neural processes. Murderbot had said that was what I'd done with Sanctuary Moon. I'd used it to reconfigure the organic parts of my brain, that it could and did have similar effects on humans. And yeah, so much of this series has been subtly or less subtly about how stories shape us as people and can change the world. And this one takes it even more literally and slaps us on the face and says, bitch, have you been listening? The stories we tell can change the world. And hell, there's even a brief sojourn in this book where we have the revelation of how stories can be a tool for good or bad, and the difference is sources. Like, are we being honest? This book is a love story to building empathy through art, and I love it. There's also a continuation of Murderbot's collecting humans, which is amazing. There's a point in this one where it comments that it now has enough humans that it has to separate them into groups to keep them straight, and I was like, oh, no, I didn't forget the Engineering Collective or Miki's humans. You've always been collecting humans families for a while now. They just usually don't end up interacting and overlapping. But it was such a cute moment. And I do also just find it really interesting how the human characters have been built throughout this series. Other than the ones who only make appearances in one story, most of them don't really get a huge amount of characterization in their first appearance. Like, Rathy, for example, wasn't much more than the nice one in All Systems Red, but over the series he has become a golden retriever extrovert friend who's into theater, definitely one of Murderbot's favorite humans. Like, he's built so much more up. And similarly, all of Art's humans were sort of just introduced to us in the last one, but we get a lot more character out of the few that really play into this book. And specifically, it's Irish and Tarek are so much more heavily developed in this one, and the reason I really like this is because it feels a lot more natural than a lot of books' characterizations. Like, this is how you meet people. The book doesn't expect us to buy that they are anything more than just a concept to Murderbot in Network Effect. They are just, you know, the thing that must be saved, whereas here it takes a while for us to get to know them as a person. Also completely random, but I absolutely love the fact that Murderbot gets really close to openly acknowledging that Baradawaj is its therapist in this book, which made me laugh out loud. I loved that moment. And on that note, I loved the way that Murderbot acknowledging its own emotions brought so much ease to it, and that it's beautifully written because you can literally feel the calming effect of it with each word, every word on the page. As it confronts things, it sort of relaxes, and that felt very therapeutic. But one more thing I do want to talk about in depth relatively quickly, because this is the most recent of the Murderbot books that is out, and I haven't heard anything about when or if a next one is coming out. I was honestly a little nervous picking this one up. Part of the reason I picked up another book before picking up this one is I was afraid this was the end of the series. And I have big, weird emotions about end of series. I often put them off for years. And let me just tell you, I am so happy with how many hints there are in this one that is setting up future stories. And it doesn't feel like the, you can imagine future stories if you want, but this is really them riding off in the sunset that you get in a lot of end of series. Like, no. This does feel like it is setting up future books. And I feel like specifically like where the alien remnants segment of the story is going feels like something that will progress. Similarly, there's hints of possible revolution that I do feel like are signs of where the book series is going next. The alien remnants specifically have been part of the series for a while, like pretty much from book one. I think, yeah, they're hinted at book one. But they always sort of felt like the way Martha Wells often uses ruins in her writing. to give her world a sense of history and deeper mystery that will never be solved, and just sort of is background color. Specifically, like the books of the Raksura, which is my other favorite of her series. They have literal islands floating around all the place, covered in ruins that are never even hinted to have an actual explanation. They just are there. They're part of history. And really that's where ruins exist in Martha Wells' books a lot, as part of history. But in this one, with how much supposition we're getting about what they are and how they interact with humans, the alien remnants that is, plus the number of different groups researching the alien remnants, and the fact that Murderbot will be tangentially linked to these groups in the future, yeah, it all feels like it's setting up a continuing arc. And I really like that. And there are only like a couple of passing moments, but there are a couple little passing hints to instability in the corporate rim that felt like foreshadowing. And there's also the fact that we now have more than a couple of constructs out there that are living relatively free lives. And that feels like it's definitely going to come back to the story at some point. So basically there's just a lot of foreshadowing in this book that tells me that, yeah, Martha Wells isn't done with this series. And that she actively has plans. Because, yeah, sometimes when you're reading a series, you get near the end and you're like, this author definitely is not done with these characters, but I'm not sure they actually know where it's going next. And this one, no. It feels like Martha Wells knows where this series is going next, and I can't wait to see it. But overall, I loved this book so much. It was the right book for me at this moment. Yes, cannot wait to get back to the Crimson Debt, but at this moment, I needed the comfort. I cannot wait for the next of these to come out, and I actually do have faith at this point that there will be a next. In the meantime, I might get a month of Apple TV so I can watch the TV show. I've already bought myself a Murderbot t-shirt. Like, I am 100% in on these books.